Now, let me come back to this climate conference in Paris. So there is now a Paris climate change agreement, which again, I'm repeating, is a very huge success for the member states which participated. All of them are supporting of this agreement. And you know that the goal everybody is committing to is holding the increase in global temperature to well below 2 degrees Celsius. And the conference asked them to pursue efforts to limit the increase to 1.5 degrees Celsius. It also asked the parties to peak greenhouse gas emissions as soon as possible. And what are the means to do this? Well, through low carbon technologies, and of course these low carbon technologies, at least to our understanding, include nuclear power. In fact, analysis from the International Energy Agency recently said coal consumption in China has already peaked and will decrease from now on, bringing emissions down with it. And you know that, especially in China, an alternative to the use of coal is definitely nuclear power. Well, we were present, I mean, the nuclear community was present in Paris through the Nuclear for Climate initiative. It was a grassroots initiative which brought together more than 140 associations and technical societies worldwide. And Nuclear for Climate's participation in COP21 demonstrated how nuclear energy as a low carbon technology is already helping keep greenhouse gas emissions low and playing an important role in tackling climate change. Again, thanks to nuclear energy, nuclear already produced more than 1/2 of Europe's low carbon electricity. Why is it so? Because the life cycle greenhouse gas emissions of nuclear are comparable to those of renewable energy sources. When I say life cycle, I mean if you add up all the contributions of carbon emissions of the whole activities from the mining industry to the end, decommissioning and deconstructing. There are many studies which have been dedicated to this, but globally we argue that nuclear produces around maximum 15 grams of CO2 equivalent per kilowatt hour, whole cycle, so global life cycle considered, so about 15 grams. There are studies assessing that wind's contribution is 11 grams and solar PVs is 17. So we are in the same order of magnitude, especially if you consider that coal produces around 700 grams of CO2 per kilowatt hour and natural gas 400. So we are well below, 2 orders of magnitude below the emissions of these traditional sources of energy. So there is no discussion from our side that nuclear energy is an indispensable source of electricity for achieving the goal of a sustainable energy system. It has specifically a high capacity factor, which means that I told you it was available 24/7, not exactly 24/7, but globally close to 90%, and globally in Europe, what we call the capacity factor has been around 85% in the last decade, so it's a measure of the availability of these nuclear reactors. The global climate challenge is immense, and globally the challenge is the following. We should produce 80% of global electricity using low carbon sources by 2050. And the International Panel on Climate Change has already stated that there is no way to achieve this without the use of nuclear energy. If you look at the scenarios described by the IPCC, many of them, I would even say the bulk of them, are integrating nuclear energy as a part of the solution. Let me quote at least three very distinguished personalities who recently expressed their concern about this. The first one is James Hansen, well known in the climate community because he has been pioneering climate change studies as the leader of the NASA Goddard Institute for Climate Change. So I would even say he's a founder of climatology. Well, in Paris, during the COP21, he held a special event in COP21 to emphasize that nuclear power is a part of the solution to fighting climate change. So a famous voice supporting nuclear. A second one I would like to quote is President Obama himself, who systematically includes nuclear as a low-carbon source of energy when he is referring to the need for a climate policy in the US. And even Bill Gates is personally involved. You know that he's wealthy, that he has been that he created a foundation dedicated to support development. Well, thanks to this foundation, Bill Gates is personally involved, not just to support, but in financing and development of next generation nuclear plants.